Now that we have a better understanding of the different types of musicals that we're going to be studying, what we need to familiarize ourselves with next are the different types of musical numbers. In other words, the different types of songs that we're going to be studying as we look at the history and evolution of musical theater. When musicals began to attempt to integrate the songs and the dance numbers into the narrative of the story, specific song types began to emerge that would take place at specific times in the story in order to help further the narrative or further expand on the emotional journey of the characters. So what you need to be familiar with is not only what these different songs are, but when they traditionally happen within the narrative. If you want a good example of a lot of these songs and their proper placement, take a look at most Disney animated musicals. They follow these traditions very, very strictly. And in fact, if you put your mind to it, you can probably place a lot of these songs using the Disney model. Starting, as we must, at the beginning, the first type of song we're going to look at is the opening number. Obviously, this is the song that happens first, and it is there to set the tone for the rest of the show. It is there to give us history and background on the characters and on the surrounding. It is there to provide any exposition we may need in order to understand the actions that are going to follow. Where are we? When are we? Who is our main character? How do they feel about the world around them? How does the world around them feel about them? And so on. The opening number will often have extended dialogue pieces within it. So the singing will be broken up by large pieces of dialogue as the actors help convey that exposition. It's not unusual for the opening number to be the last song that's actually written for a show. Happening in about the number 2 or number 3 slot in a musical, you have what we call the I Am song. This is a song where the character explains who they are and how they feel, or a group of characters can describe a situation. This is a means for the character to introduce themselves directly to the audience and define oneself, and provides moments of self-realization. This is where characters express freely how they feel at that moment, and sometimes discover something about themselves. What you'll often find with an I Am song is they will often repeat it towards the end of the musical to show how the character's point of view or situation has now changed. The I Am song can sometimes be interchangeable or combined with this type of song called the I Want song. So once again, the I Want song is usually placed within the second or third song of the show because, as you can guess from the title, it is there for the character to express in plain English to the audience what it is they want. What is it that is going to be motivating them throughout the show? What is going to propel the action of the story throughout the remainder of the show? Where the I Am song describes a present state, where the character is right now, the I Want song suggests a course of action for the future. This is one of those instances where, again, if you think about the Disney musicals, all of them, especially if you look at the Disney Renaissance set from about the early to late 90s, all of them have an I Want song. And they're usually, again, the second or third song into the show. It's rare that you'd see an I Want song later in the second act, but it has happened, just not normally. You usually want that I Want song front and center, setting the stage and hoping that the audience connects enough with the character to root for them to get what they want for the remainder of the show. Next up, we have the ballad. Now, the ballad doesn't have a specific time it really needs to take place within the show. It can come at any point within the story. The term ballad has a couple of different meanings. If you're talking about it from a strictly songwriting point of view, a ballad is any musical story. So you'll hear things like the Ballad of Jed Clampett or the Ballad of Gilligan's Island, meaning it's a musical story. However, in the musical theater world, ballad has a different meaning. In the musical theater world, a ballad describes any song where the character feels a particularly strong emotion. For that reason, we tend to classify ballads primarily as love songs or duets. When two characters sing their love song, we usually consider that a ballad. But it is important to note, a ballad does not have to be a love song. It's any song with particularly strong emotions. Next up, we have the Showstopper. As the title may suggest, this is the show's big musical number. It is designed specifically to make the audience stand up and cheer. It is there to get the audience engaged and to fill them with a lot of energy. This is often the song that the show is best known for. It's the catchiest tune. It's the one that they want people singing and tapping their foot to. The Showstopper also tends to be where they try to highlight the dancing, the very best of the singing. It tries to get everything involved to make the number as big and as grand as possible. Again, if we look at the Disney example, looking at songs like the Disney Renaissance, things like Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, Be Our Guest from Beauty and the Beast, Friend Like Me from Aladdin, these would be considered showstoppers. Now, the song gets its name because traditionally in theatrical structure, you'd want the showstopper to either happen at the end of Act 1, i.e. before the audience leaves for intermission, or you want it to happen directly when they come back from intermission to get them back into it. So usually before intermission, but you will see some examples of showstoppers that take place after intermission as well. A distant cousin to the Showstopper is this song called the 11 o'clock number. Now, this one gets its name because it usually takes place midway through Act 2. It's usually the second or third song from the end. It gets its name because back in the early days of Broadway, all the shows started at 11:30 p.m., and so this song would occur around 11 o'clock at night. As you can imagine, by this point, the audience is going to be pretty tired. So the 11 o'clock number is used to try to get the audience re-energized for the end of the show, to bring them home, as some would say. The 11 o'clock number can be basically any type of song. It can be a showstopper, it can be a ballad, it can be a charm song, a comedy number. It doesn't matter. It's just there to try to get the energy back up for the final scene. Sometimes they will try to place the most important song of the show in the 11 o'clock number because that's the one that they want the audience to be singing or humming to themselves as they leave the theater. That's the one they want to have ingrained in the audience's mind. This is another one of those that the placement of it within the musical is very important. You can't have an 11 o'clock number in the first act. It doesn't make any sense. The 11 o'clock number comes towards the end of Act 2. Always, always, always. There are a couple of different types of songs that have no specific placement within the structure of the show. They go wherever they're needed. These songs can also be other types of musical numbers. For instance, you have the character song. This is used to define a specific character. This is a song that fits the dramatic situation and cannot be fully appreciated if it's taken out of context. In other words, it is written to define a specific character within that show. A good example from Beauty and the Beast, the song Gaston. That is about the character of Gaston, and therefore is a lot harder to sing outside of the context of the show. You also have an exposition song. This is where you inform the audience about what has happened prior to the play and what has brought the characters to this particular point in the action. It can also provide a preview of the themes of the play. Now, this is important, so pay attention. An exposition song can be an introduction. It can be an opening number. But an opening number does not have to be an exposition song. Other types of musical numbers that we'll find in modern musicals, the narration song. This is where a character will sing a song about something they witnessed, but that the audience was not immediately privy to. A good example of this is from the musical 1776, the song Mama Looks Sharp, where a young soldier describes a battle that he was in. Comedy numbers. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's there for laughs, used to highlight the comic relief characters. One of the most common types of musical numbers is what they call the reprise, or the reprise, depending on how you pronounce it. This is when all or part of a song is repeated to make a dramatic point and is usually to energize the end of the scene or the show as a whole. A reprise is often used in the 11 o'clock number to help get the audience re-familiar with where our characters began and know where they're going to try to get to. An effective reprise, which functions dramatically, reveals the development of the character since the last time the song was sung. One that has become very popular in recent years, and again, you can thank the Disney Corporation for this, is the villain song. This has become a staple of Broadway since about the 90s, and this is a song sung by the villain or about the villain, featuring how much the villain loves being evil. Again, this was not popular in the early days of the musical because back then, if you had a villain, you didn't want to know about him. You wanted to boo him, and you didn't care what he thought or what he had to say. But, and again, you can thank Disney primarily for this, people discovered that the villain songs were often the most fun. Poor Unfortunate Souls, Be Prepared, the aforementioned Gaston. Another type of musical number, though not a song per se, is the dance number. This is a moment in the show when the dancing is highlighted. And what you'll normally see here is the actors will sing a little bit and then go into an extended dance number to show off the high-skilled dancers that they have involved. And finally, we have the finale. Just like the opening number, the finale is fairly self-explanatory. It closes the show out. It's what the audience leaves with. The finale should carry some kind of an emotional wallop, leaving audiences with a powerful, lasting impression. Now, note that I am not saying it has to end happily. Some of the most famous musicals in history, as we will discover, their closing numbers are very downtrodden. and very deflated because of what the characters have gone through. Or in some cases, the song, the rhythm and the tempo is very up and it sounds happy, but the words they are actually saying are very negative. This is usually done by reprising one of the score's emotionally packed numbers. It's not very frequent where they use an alternate approach and introduce a rousing new song for the finale. Usually it's a reprise of one of the numbers we have heard before. So it is important that you familiarize yourself with these different types of musical numbers, but also that you have an understanding of where they fall within the dramatic structure of the show.